Hi everyone. I'm doing this recording from Zoom, trying out yet another platform for recording. So you'll notice that I got my virtual background here, trying to bring my Zen to this recording. So this is a quick just overview of learning progressions, the why of learning progressions. Why do we do them? What's in this resource on the website that you're now in, what you will see. So I'm going to share my screen and show you a few things. The first thing I'm just going to do is give you a quick overview of the learning progression why and the what we are going to do eventually with this. And what I will do is just share with you the website I'm building out so you can see where things are and what it will look like for you. So let me just get this going so that you can see it full screen. And here we go. So just to kind of give you this overview, first of all, learning progressions are a different way to kind of think about, you know, the process of curriculum work. And so one of the things that's different from probably what has been happening in your prior curriculum work is to, which you've been using Understanding by Design as sort of your framework for that. In this work, what we're going to be doing is really diving into that learning destination and making that clear. And we want that to be really clear to the learners, to their families, and also for you as instructors who are going to be designing instruction for your kids around these learning progressions. So when we talk about guaranteed and viable curriculum, and that's a really important piece that we need to have systemically for a system to really function well in terms of being focused in on student learning. And so Dr. Marzano's work around high reliability schools is pretty awesome, and it gives us some very clear direction on what we need to do in terms of a guaranteed and viable curriculum. So what makes for this guaranteed and viable curriculum? Well, first of all, curriculum and assessments adhere to the standards. We're going to be using the national standards for all content areas across the board. Those ones are really the most stable. And New Hampshire's four out of the content areas that we're working with, they adopted the national standards anyway. Social studies is still in the mix of trying to be created and published for New Hampshire, but what I have seen so far, the national standards just are far superior to what's going to be coming out from New Hampshire. So we'll go with those. I think the resources that come with that are excellent. So again, you know, that adherence to standards though piece is truly critical for that guaranteed and viable curriculum. It's focused enough that it can be adequately addressed in the time available to teachers. That's really important to have. And we are on curriculum overload. Often what school districts do, like with Understanding by Design, is we copy and paste the standards into UBD templates, and then we backwards plan from our resources. And there's too much in the standards. You know, Dr. Marzano's research has shown us that, you know, to meet the Common Core standards and all the declarative and procedural knowledge, plus the thinking skills that are required of those standards, it'd take you over 30 years to master what's in there. We don't have that kind of time. Next generation science standards, 50 years. So this is kind of a big, you know, there's just too much there. And then when you look at all of the resources that we purchase, there's always way too much stuff in those resources for us to actually even expose kids to, let alone master what's in them. Those are built for all possibilities for who purchases them. So we have to have a shopping list going into those resources, and that's where these learning progressions will be really helpful once they're built. All students have the opportunity to learn the critical concepts in the curriculum, which means that, you know, we have really carved out the time that's needed. And that's something that's a very scarce resource for us. And so we have to really look at that. Clear and measurable goals are established and focused on critical needs regarding important overall student achievement. And that's really what the work is to unpack that and put those into scoring scales that are in digestible bites from simpler goals to more complex goals. Data are analyzed, interpreted, and used to regularly monitor progress towards school achievement goals. One of the great things about learning progressions is that you are building them out in scoring scales. And once you have the right technology for those, you're actually collecting data as you assess and score students with those scales. Appropriate school and classroom level programs and practices are in place to help students meet individual achievement goals when data indicates interventions are needed. So these are sort of the criteria, the checklist of things that give us or what we would call the success criteria for a guaranteed and viable curriculum. So the first step of this is building out those learning progressions and in this framework. The other thing that we're actually going to kind of get into as we look at the learning progression work is the critical concepts that Marzano, and there's also another piece that Mahesh Sharma has done for math that we also will look at, but these are done for the core content areas. So for those of you that teach outside the core content areas, unfortunately there isn't this nice document, so we'll have to do a little bit more work or look at other people's work and use it if that's our choice. And so, but this is a really key document. I think it will be super helpful. It can be super helpful for even right now, even though you don't necessarily have learning progressions that you're working from yet. So just to really be clear about what the learning progressions are, and I have another video here that will get more in depth in this. And also, if you go into my module in the Google Classroom resource that I created, there's a whole series of instruction and samples and things in there for you to take a look at to get more in depth around this. But I'm putting this in this little intro video just because I want to be clear about what the difference is between curriculum work, first of all, that you've done in the past, and also what's the difference between these and a rubric that you might use to score a piece of evidence. And they are different. These are not meant to specifically score evidence. You will be scoring evidence, right? You will be collecting evidence. And these proficiency scales, by the way, have a column for the evidence that's associated with these instructional goals. But the scale itself is for a broader conceptual understanding or skill. And it's used to evaluate progress on the essentials that are needing to be learned. And it's meant to help help to directly align between learning goals, instruction, and assessment. And so you'll notice that the scales are really a continuum, or an attempt to create a continuum that articulates the district level's knowledge and skill relative to a specific topic. It can be thought of as an applied version of a learning progression. A well-written scale should make it easy for teachers to design and score assessments that can be used to generate both formative and summative scores. So you'll notice in this little arrow, it's really showing you it's like a step ladder, so to speak. It's taking students from the simpler goals, foundational proficiency, into the complex proficiency that the standard is asking for. And then, what would be beyond that, and getting kids to that even higher levels of reasoning where they're inferencing and really applying their knowledge and skill in novel and real life ways ultimately. So that's really what this whole thing is about. And again, it's kind of a simpler process than maybe UBD has been in the past. And so I just want to scroll down really quickly just to bring up a scale. And again, you're going to have more around this. And whoops, I screwed that up. You're going to have more around this in your tutorials in the Google Classroom, as well as right here in this website, a little tutorial video as well. But this is a scale, right? And these are going to be housed inside of measured topics, and they're going to be in order of how and kids should learn them. So just a specific scale is designed like this. And you can see that the essence of the standard is in Proficient 3. And there is the 2 developing the simpler goals that are needed in order for students to be able to jump into and master that score 3. And then you'll notice that there's a place for the taxonomy, and I'll get into that in a different video, but that's where we're really going to analyze and decide what the standard is really asking for to be proficient in terms of the thinking skills. And then there's a column for the body of evidence. How will the learners show their learning? And you'll notice that I put in this scale the actual standard that this scale is coming from. There's several scales that go around this particular standard, but you'll notice that it's written, standards are written as you know, products and performances often, actually always, if you look at them really in depth. And so what we're doing is unpacking those instructional goals and the thinking skills so that we know what to do for instruction. So when we put a student into this task that they're going to have to develop a model that predicts and describes changes in particle motion, temperature, and state of pure substance when thermal energy is added or removed. That's like you're out of breath when you're reading that. Which is the next generation science standard, and there's a lot to them, and all the standards are like that. So we have to really unpack them, look at what is to be learned, the learning destination, and then what do we put our students into for conditions and experiences in which they'll be able to practice and provide us evidence that they have learned. So this work is really critical. There's essences, I think, of some things that you've already done that you can bring to the table, but this is certainly new work. And so the other thing that we'll have to decide, and ultimately, is do we want to start from scratch, or do we want to pick a model that is already done that we can actually, that we can actually use and take and use. So what I have done is, I'm just getting to my current page. And so what I have done here in this website is to, I'm gonna move my screen so I can actually see the publish button. I'm just gonna view site so that you can see it. So inside of my website that I am building, this video that I'm making right now will actually be here. So that's where you'll be clicking on it when you are watching this. You'll notice that there is the home page, which will look like this. When you get my link to this website, you will see this, and you will see a place called Learning Progressions, which you will click on that, and that will take you to here, where you're now watching this video. And so in here, there are going to be some links, and one of the links is going to be some sample learning progressions. So one of the things that I'm going to ask staff to do is to actually look at the samples, and they're going to be in a shared Google Drive. So you notice that I just clicked on that link, and now I'm into a shared Google Drive called Sample Learning Progressions. And there is sample learning progressions from the main cohort for customized learning. And I've downloaded all of theirs. We are now a member with them, which means that we have access to using their learning progressions as an exemplar. We can use them as they exist, or we can take them and and edit them to meet our needs here in Farmington. There's also another one that's was done using actually the MCCL model, but doing some edits and revisions from theirs. And at the time, MCCL did not have their assessments in the sample body of evidence column. And they've since then done some changes, which you have the most updated versions in this folder. And so, but the Geoffrey Ringe samples are there so that you can take a look at them. There's also documents in here that for standards. So I have a place where there's links for the standards. I also will be uploading some documents for the standards because some of the National Social Studies standards, for example, I purchased the book and I've uploaded a scanned copy of the sections of the book for each developmental level. So those will be up there. The other things that are here as well are the Mahesh non-negotiables for math, which math teachers, anybody who's teaching math, this is a really good resource to look at, as well as the critical concepts for ELA, math, science, and social studies from Dr. Marzano. So those are all in there. And so that will be there for you. And I'm going to also have some tutorials and some resources here. But again, I would strongly suggest you actually go into my Google Classroom and do the learning progressions module. I think that will be super helpful. And it really will give you a much deeper understanding of what the work is that we're going to be doing and how we're going to be doing it and what the outcome will look like. And again, it'll also give you more information when I ask you to power vote on what it is that you want to do for how you want to do the work. Do you want to start from scratch, or do you want to take one of these models and edit it or use it as is? So those will be kind of the questions I'm going to ask you to think through and vote on, because we certainly will be much further ahead, honestly, if we just take a model that's already done and edit it versus starting from scratch. Starting from scratch is going to take us a lot longer. But again, if that's what the staff would like to do, that's what we will do. And we'll try to figure out the time to make that happen. So again, this is just this short video trying to help you to understand the learning progressions, the work, the why of the learning progressions, the kind of work that we're going to be doing, and where those resources are that you can access and that we'll be using. So if you have any questions, make sure that you let me know, and we will get to work on this as soon as we can. So enjoy.